thank you for joining Virtual Day Trip to Wine Country, presented by Citi. I'm Sam Kimball from New York Wine Events, and we are thrilled to be here on a beautiful Tuesday evening. I'm out on the North Fork of Long Island in wine country, and we're really excited about tonight's broadcast. We have a really awesome wine we're going to be talking about, a very special one, as you will see. We're going to be virtually traveling to Spain, which is where the bulk of the grapes and the source material for this very special wine come from. And we're going to be visiting with, the name of the wine is Amour Genève, or Amour Bleu, which is a wonderful and very innovative wine and wine producer. Amour Genève's calling card as a wine is that it is the world's first naturally blue wine. It's actually blue in color. If you have not seen it or tried it, it is absolutely captivating, delicious, and with a gorgeous blue color. To learn all about Amour Genève and Amour Bleu, you can visit amourbluforever.com. That's that's AMOURBLU forever.com. Amour Bleu Forever. And a deal spoiler alert I have tonight. I'm excited to say that if you use the promo code New York Wine Events, all spelled out, all one word, New York, all spelled out, Wine Events, you get $4 off of your purchase of Amour Bleu. So take advantage of that if you find this wine to be as captivating and as exciting as I do. If you have questions during our session tasting, please put them in the Q&A or the chat module in Zoom, and we will get to them. And also, let us know in the chat where you're tuning in from. Hit the chat module and tell us where you are coming from. We love to hear from people from all over, and we tend to see a great variety of locations where people are logging in from. At New York Wine Events, we have had the wonderful experience of working with Amour Genève at our events. Many different events, North Fork Crush, New York City Autumn Wine and Food Festival, New York City Winter Wine and Food Festival. So it's my pleasure today to host my good friend Coviello Salinès, founder of Amour Genève. Welcome, Coviello. I think we might have lost him. Oh, there he is.
Here I am.
Just unmuted you, Coviello. Welcome to the broadcast. It is great having you here today.
You as well. Mucho gusto, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Buenos tardes and good afternoon and good evening, everybody in attendance. Thank you for joining us today. And thank you, Sam, for that great introduction. I wish I can have you in my pocket everywhere whenever wow, that was fantastic. Thank you.
You know, the next live event we do, I'll come to the table, and if I can get some people revved up, that's a good thing.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So this is so cool you're here. We love having you at our physical events, and obviously we're on pause with those now with everyone in quarantine mode.
Yeah,
but it's really cool to have you guys here and to have blue wine. So my first question is very simple. What was the original inspiration for this blue wine?
Sure. So the main dynamic here was my father, and my father was a huge advocate of the color blue. My father was a Marine engineer, and he was also a Marine infantry. So I was raised very staunch and disciplined, and a lot of manners and a lot of dynamics here. If you see here behind Sam, there's a picture of my father. If you see something very similar, everything he had was blue. So the one thing that he used to collect was a lot of stones, like turquoise, topaz, blue diamonds. He was born in December, so that stone is the color blue. So he used to collect all these different heirlooms every time he traveled throughout his travels through his deployment. But the one thing that he always loved doing when he came back, recreational wise, was cooking and pairing the wines with the food that he was making. So I learned the actual culture and ideology behind wine and also the pairing aspect very young. And, he would tell me about the areas in the journey of how he used to find these wines and things of that nature. And just the nature orientedness of him was what encompassed everything in my life. He wanted me to actually be a neurosurgeon. So he was studying for me to be that, very, very staunch. And, but the one thing that he always told me was, whatever you do in this life, you have to make sure that you leave a blueprint, because when you leave this earth, you don't really have anything outside of your memories, your stories, your journeys, and what people remember from you. So you got to leave a blueprint that people can grow off of and build in your legacy, right? So specifically, I wanted to do the story and make that blue component for him, because he passed when I was in my college career of my junior year, very tragically. And, he was the one that pushed me education-wise to go to school, get a career, make your own blueprint and figure out what you're going to leave for the world. And when he passed very tragically. And, I wanted to do something that was a passion project for him, because I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do at that point in time. But, I wanted to make sure that I did something as a legacy to him. So I ended up studying biochemistry and petroleum engineering. So I ended up studying at Kent State University. That's in Ohio. That's kind of near Akron, in the middle of Akron and Ohio State, that area. So very well known for the historic, the historic war zone that they had out there on the campus, actually. Kent has a very big historical outlook there. So I ended up studying biochemistry, and I was working with a lot of very, very famous oil and gas companies, and I was one of their lead engineers. So pretty much doing a lot of extraction work, engineering with figuring out what we were pulling out of the ground, if we were taking natural gases, crude oil, things of that nature, and figuring out how we were going to utilize it to resources that we can use, whether it be plastics or whether it be ethanol, whether it be things of that nature, right? So from that point, I never really enjoyed the field of petroleum engineering too much, because I was in the field a lot, right? And most of the people that you're in the field with, you call them your family. So a few of the gentlemen were bringing to my attention, because they knew the story. We all know the story about each other's parents and stuff like that. And, they were telling me, they're like, hey, we know that you want to do something as a passion project for your father. And we were seeing a few of these winemakers that were trying to do these different color wines, but they were doing it unnaturally. Now, a lot of people don't really know that when you do a winemaking process through the actual viticulture, through the enology, through the maceration, through the fermentation, through the bottling, right? All that process has to be naturally allocated to everything, whether it be the land, the maceration process, the fermentation process, all the ingredients that go into that fermenting process and the harvest, all have to be natural. So since the color blue and a lot of other colors are not naturally comprised in nature, especially the color blue, because in the culinary field, a lot of people that may be on this live that are in the culinary field, realistically, that's the first color that they tell you to stay away from, the color blue, right? So what we ended up doing was I ended up going to the city of Geneva first. Now, hence the name Amour Genève, the love of Geneva. My father loved this city of Geneva, and me and him were actually supposed to take a trip there, but we never got the chance to. So I ended up traveling out there, and we ended up going to a few different seed banks and different depositories that had these different type of study areas and labs that we were able to do some work on separating not only fruits and vegetables that had a high level of anthocyanin, which anthocyanin is the actual color makeup of what you see in like lemons, radishes, eggplants, those type of things, and break down the comprised structure of these different fruits and vegetables from those colors. So we ended up figuring out, all right, well, we should make it into a wine, right? That would be a perfect legacy for my father, right? Because I learned wine from him, And, you know, if I can construct something that's naturally blue, that would be a perfect alignment. Now, in my mind, I didn't realistically know that it was going to be something that was going to be so mind-blowing to people. I just wanted to do this passion project. So ended up getting 4 vineyards in Alicante, which is the Mediterranean coast of Spain. Ended up getting a Verdeco, which is a Spanish white wine, very similar to a Vermentino or Pinot Grigio, right? Now, after that point, we wanted to figure out what varietal is going to allow us to develop. And this is the actual, this is the facing the north when you're looking at the rest of the hectares here. So this is the actual, it's like a painting of the vineyards that we laid out. It's
this is in Alicante, right?
Yes, yes. And Alicante is the Mediterranean coast of Spain. So it's south of Valencia and north of Cartagena. It falls horizontal to Ibiza. They have beautiful Verdeco. Tempranillo is grown there. Albariño is grown mostly up near Rueda and Raya Espacia. That's where you usually find like Albariño and things like that. But this is on the northern coast when you're looking up towards the vineyard. The vineyard is very modernized. They're just now building a tasting room outside of where we're doing all the harvesting and everything. But specifically, this is just in Alicante. So we wanted to develop another harvest, which was Nebbiolo. So Nebbiolo is actually in the Piemonte area, which is the northern part of Italy. They were known to be hit the hardest in Italy by the COVID-19 virus. So, you know, they were, we've been contacting a lot of them, and, you know, they were doing their harvest. They were essential workers out there, but still, you know, they were hit the hardest. So specifically, we ended up going out there and making a makeshift lab. And at that point in time, we were able to develop a separator and a hyperbaric chamber to allow these grape skins during the maceration process to separate from the whole component. And mostly, when people see the maceration process, whether it be a red wines mostly lay on top of the juice so it can gather in all of that color. Specifically, when it comes down to what we were trying to do, we wanted to just get the skins and separate them from the juice and then come up with a natural separation, very similar to molecular gastronomy, where we took the skins, broke them down to a point where it went from an acidic into an alkaline. So I don't know if you have the picture there, Sam, where it has the actual scale of colors that you see from red all the way to green. That'll give a little bit better of a cadence on what people usually would see through the pH scale. So just to give you a kind of idea of how that would look, usually when you have a wine in the beginning, it's very acidic. It's around like a 3.2, 3.7, right? Acidity allows the preserving of the wine to be stable. We ended up bringing the acidity all the way into an alkaline, allowing it to develop into a blue color naturally. At that point in time, we needed to make sure that not only the skins did not get allocated to that that backtracking to acidic level, but we wanted to make sure that we stabilized it at that point. So if you see here, anthocyathin is in the left side of the screen. That is where the development is actually taking place when it comes down to the color. Now, somebody asked a very, very valuable question. What happens when you bring one grape varietal all the way to an alkaline? Because realistically, to have a very great aging wine, you want to make sure that you have that acidic, right? That acidity, especially with the white wine. Now, with reds, you know, you have tannins, you have sugars, you know, you have different natural preservatives that will allow it to age properly. But what we ended up doing was with the Nebbiolo skins, we just wanted to stabilize that color, right? And then develop it back into the Verdeco, which was aging over in Alicante, which allowed the separation of the color to then get introduced to the acidic compound that it naturally lost in the beginning phase, and then fermented naturally, and then ended up getting bottled where oxidation did not harm it, allowing it to then stabilize that beautiful color, which I will pour out for you actually right now.
All right. So actually, what's really interesting to me is the process not only needs to ensure that you achieve this gorgeous blue color, but then the wine sustains it and there's no change in the aging process.
Correct. Absolutely. Because the acidity gives it the natural preserved, like, because white wine isn't really supposed to be aged too much, right? You'll see some white wines that can go for 5 to 7 years, yes. But usually white wines, you want to drink them while they're young, right? Same thing with rosés, same thing with vermentinos, same thing with Chenin Blancs, things of that nature, right? You want to drink more when they're young. You know, when you get like a Malbec or a Shiraz or, you know, a Sauterne, you're going to want to have, you can age them a little bit better, right? Even a Cab or Merlot, right? So, but white wines, you want to drink this when they're more fresh, more young. They're more vibrant and refreshing and clean, right? So that's why we wanted to make sure that we allocated that first to see, okay, can we age this? If people want to keep this as a gift, will the oxygen, you know, not be stabilized after a certain amount of time? So what we did is we did an expedited track to see if that would happen, and it literally didn't. I had a 2017 vintage from the very beginning to now, and literally it's still been the same. It hasn't gained any sedimentation breakdown. There hasn't been any issues there. I'm waiting to crack that open when you know, I hit the million mark. But yeah, that's gonna be the natural determinant factor there.
So it's a combination of the Nebbiolo grape skins and the Verdejo grapes from Spain, yeah?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Because that was my question. What are the grape types that make up Amour Blue? And they come from mainly Spain, but some components from Italy.
Correct.
Where do you bottle the wine, Coviello?
Yes. So we bottle it all in Spain specifically. We only did our lab work in Piedemonte. So we didn't really, because realistically in Piedemonte, it was a very rural area we were doing this in. We were using a buddy's vineyard. So a good friend of mine had a few different vineyards. So we were using his vineyards to do a little bit of lab work on there and figure out if this was the proper varietal. But the main vineyard that we were working with was in Alicante. So we wanted to do all of the bottling there. We wanted to do all the Verdejo harvesting. We wanted to make sure everything was allocated there. Our exporting happened there, you know, and that's where we're gonna have our tasting room, because it's a very beautiful site, very modernized, very space. It looks like a spaceship. The whole vineyard is beautiful.
So is there did I hear there's gonna be an Amour Blue, Amour Genève tasting room in Alicante?
I have to. I literally have to. I've had so many people like, hey, we want to visit the vineyard. I'm like, right. You know what? We're gonna try to expense that out and see if we can do that. You know, maybe get JetBlue to fly everybody out to Spain and do a whole walkthrough of the vineyard.
Raise your hand in the chat if you're up for doing a tour with us to go out to Alicante with Coviello and taste in the new tasting room. That'd be awesome.
Right, so nice. It'd be so amazing. So
now, you are working on various things wine oriented at the current time, including Amour Blue. During this time, tell us about what else you're working on, because I think, you know, when you bring, and not everyone realizes that wine involves quite a lot of science and quite a lot of chemistry, and you bring that technical experience, which is super cool and very impressive to what you do. What else are you doing in your wine efforts and collaborations?
Yes, so currently I'm working. I'm very business oriented. Outside of my science field and everything of that nature, I always been very business oriented when it came down to you know, just understanding the economics of how things work, right? And in the wine industry, the one thing that I've noticed is that there's many great brands out there that are very underrepresented, whether it be through lack of representation or distribution, distribution issues. right? And then also importing issues. And the problem is the importers are pretty much hand in hand with distributors, and they pick and choose what brands are, you know, being out there to, you know, literally out there to the people. So that's why you see a lot of these Moets and Ruclico and, you know, these set brands that are out there. But there's so many other brands and so many other stories and passion projects that are out there that many people will never even know about, because the marketing dollars are not allocated to their actual movement. And then, of course, the distribution, which is a big factor too. So what we're trying to specifically do now is I'm working with a few distribution companies in the United States and a few different vineyards and wineries in different countries that I have visited that I know have superior stories and superior great varietals and wines, and making not only making a portfolio, but making a group of individuals that understand the nuance of wine, the hospitality factor of wine, and the economics of it. Because you can have sommeliers that are great in hospitality, you can have distributors and people that run representation when it comes down to brand awareness, but you never have all three, right? Unless you have like a Southern or like an Empire, where you have different people that are in different categories, but a lot of those people don't look at the smaller brands anymore.
Right.
So if you're able to start at that point in time and build with a brand, you're able to pretty much control how the brand awareness and how that brand is built. So it's kind of it's very rewarding, not even kind of, it's very rewarding on the whole dynamic of just seeing them grow. And that's what I'm working on. You know, that's one major thing. And then, you know, I'm really big into real estate, of course, and investing. And so I'm bringing this ideology of, you know, these areas such as like Detroit in the United States, or certain parts of Vermont, and, you know, certain areas where real estate needs to be allocated to land, because a lot of land in the United States, but there's not enough vineyards that are being constructed, that we're able to bring this different varietals back into the United States, right? So that's what I'm looking at now too. I'm looking at the different land and different areas, and figuring out the soil, figuring out the viticulture, and just how the land and the appellation and the region really takes on to the climate of what varietals we want to utilize there. So I'm doing a lot of that background. So, and all of that, and building this brand, it's way more than enough for me at this point in time. But yeah, it's great because I get to work with a lot of great people, and that's the glory of it all.
Well, you and me both. You preaching to the choir, because I love working with the winemakers and the wineries and the founders, and what they do. Like we were talking earlier today, Coviello, it's God's work, and what they make in most cases is so spectacular and great.
Right.
And yet, as you point out, they don't always get promoted or marketed or distributed in an effective way, and it's a
Right.
shame, because if you know, for those of you, and we do have people in our audience, and I'm sure there's some watching right now who have been with us out to wine country for our tours, and when we really meet winemakers and we tour the tank room and the barrel room, and you see the heart and soul that these people put into the product. And it's so great that you're working on these other projects with other varietals and different types of grapes, because that's another thing that, you know, we're the richest country in the world, but we're probably the poorest country in terms of how diverse a group of grapes we consume in our wine. We drink like 6 different types of grapes, but there's thousands in the world, and so that's another thing.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! I was looking at I was recently looking at a lot of wines from Slovenia and from Greece as well.
Incredible.
And just the because I love that the grittiness of the Slovenian wines, like the tariff, like it's so, the minerality is so developed in their wines that it's like, if you would have, I don't know what you enjoy, but I love a good steak, right? But I also love tasting like the soil, the topsoil, like the limestone, like everything. I love that. Yeah, I love the grittiness of it. Like a lot of people don't like that, but I feel like when you can taste all of that in a wine and then have it so put together in such a nice, complex balance and full body dynamic to what food you pair with, I think that's so masterful. Like it's masterfully done how they do everything over there. Just like if you have like a Bordeaux or Barbaresco, like from Italy, you can taste the fruit, you can taste the black fruit, you can taste the clay that's developed into the actual harvest. It's just so, and I tell this to people all the time, like wine is one of those things where if you enjoy a subject in school, you will find it in wine, whether it be geology, whether it be English, whether it be science, whether it be, anything. You can find the every single avenue in the wine industry or in the economics of wine or viticulture. So
yeah, no, it's very
but people
cool.
were asking about
So we got some questions, Coviello.
Yes.
So we talked about the wines and how you make the wine blue, but
Yes.
what about Michael's question? Are the wines significantly higher in anthocyanins than most other wines?
Yes. So specifically, right, anthocyanin is mostly a derivative of the flavanols. So flavanols mostly get relied inside of the skins, right? Now, the only time the skins are laid on wine is if you're getting a more distinct color. Mostly when it comes down to reds, the juices and the skins and the pits and everything is laying right on top of the juices during the maceration process, and even sometimes through the fermenting process. So you're gonna fall into anthocyanins being mostly developed inside of the wine when the color gets developed in the red wines. But the thing about this is that we develop just the skins. Mostly the skins are thrown away at a certain point when you're developing red wines. They're not gonna have it like a natural one where you see some sedimentation relying inside of the bottle, right? So the skins, we take all the skins and dry them out to a point where we can not only manipulate organically the color by moving the pH scale, but we're able to just concentrate the actual anthocyanin and allow it to balance through that pH scale. So that's a difference between just having it in a maceration process and allowing it to gain the color when it's sitting on the juice. We have it more concentrated to a point where we're stabilizing the anthocyanin in the skins to a point where we can pull the scale of the pH to a whole nother balance and color.
Cool. All right, let's taste Amour Bleu.
Yes. How about that?
Because we have a couple questions. People want to know what the flavor profile and the
Absolutely.
nose is.
I know they do.
And the notes. So let's jump into it.
Absolutely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off for a second. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour it so people can see. So you'll see the color here first. I'll break down the clarity of it first since I'm behind a white background. So if everybody's looking now, I'm going to pour. And if you can see, the vibrancy of this color is extraordinarily blue, right? So instead of it being like a dull, like if you're looking at like a, what do I want to say, like a Gatorade where it's like dull blue or something of that nature, this is more vibrant. So this is, I like to say this is very similar to like the waters in like the Bahamas or the Caribbean or Antigua and Anguilla. Or even the French Riviera, you see water at this color.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's and it's difficult to say, like, most people are like, how do you pick the clarity? Like, how do you figure out like what color, since it's blue, right? So the clarity factor realistically doesn't come in a factor here. It's just the nuance of the blue that people, enjoy. Now, specifically, I'll get to the distributors in 1 second. So I'll get to the actual notes now. Now on the nose profile, you're gonna smell it. I have it here on the table. This is about a foot away from me, and I smell right now the notes of grapefruit, white peach, crisp apple, nice lilac, right? The stone fruit is going to be more nectar. You're going to have very, very subtle peach. Again, lemon is going to be very apparent with this. So you're going to want to enjoy this nice with any type of fish, honey glazed salmon, chicken francaise, chicken piccata, a nice Mediterranean salad or a summer salad, anything lean, right? That's where you mostly want to develop your pairing when it comes down to white wine. So that's on the nose. That's what you're going to get. Very apparent, right? So again, you can smell you can smell that you're going to have a very subtle, smooth, clean, refreshing palate when it hits, right? Originally, but more citrus, right? Now, originally when you consume it, a lot of people think like, oh, since this is an alcoholytic wine, is it going to be more nullified on the palate?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what you're going to taste initially is something that's going to be very smooth, very clean, very refreshing. You're not going to have an oaky type of component because it's still tin aged. So it's going to be very clean, but you're not going to have that Vermentino type of finish. It's going to be very balanced, right? So you're going to have the very subtle citrus, but you're going to have more peach. You're going to have grapefruit. It's going to balance very nicely. And then you're going to have that Riesling finish on the back end. Okay. So you're going to feel the salivation in your cheeks very quickly, right? The acidity it's not going to hit you super hard, but you're going to know that, okay, the acidity is here. He developed the Verdeco enough to be able to allow the preserve of the alkaline to develop naturally and balance it back to the acidity that it needs to sustain the preserved aging process of the bottling. So that's initially what you're going to get. A lot of people ask me as well, when it comes down to the finish, right? Are you going to make it last longer? Like if you're partaking in like maybe like a Provence rosé, or if you're having something like I don't know, like when you have like a Chianti and you have that long finish. I want to say yes, but realistically, I want to develop maybe like a more Albarino to have more of a finish, because that has a more subtle grapefruit and tangerine type of note to it, which you get subtle notes of that and passion fruit in this as well. But to have a nice tangerine balance would also be nice as well to give it that lasting finish. The body is very light. It's very crisp. Again, it's not oaky, and it's not medium body like a Chardonnay. So it's more like a Pinot Grigio or Pinot Gris. Very clean, very crisp, very refreshing. There's not, I don't know if too many people here pay attention to the legs, but the legs on the glass sustain for a good 4 seconds. So you can see the hold is a little bit good on the viscosity level.
And what's the alcohol content on this wine?
So this wine is a 12.5.
Okay.
Very
drinkable.
It's very drinkable. You can't, and this is the thing about it that I really enjoy when people share with me. They're like, this is not overbearing. Yep. It's not when you're drinking it, like some people drink rosés and they tell me, some rosés are just very bitter. Mm-hmm. Some white wines are just very watered down type, or sometimes very bitter. This is like a perfect balance between the two, right? So, and the reason why I wanted to do that specifically is that most individuals, when they consume wine, they're not mostly, out of the country at least, they're pairing their wines with their foods. In the United States, they're a little bit different. They just, they purchased a low budget wine or a cheaper wine, but they realistically don't know what a good wine is. So, that's one other reason why I want to introduce different brands and different other varietals to people that really need to understand these type of things. It's super important. So, and on top of this, the wine being more alkaline, it allows individuals that have like acid reflux or Crohn's disease or heartburn, things of that nature, to be able to consume this. Because the minute it gets into your body, yes, the acidity is there for the preservative aspect, but the acidity doesn't fall so low as a 3.5 or a 4. So it falls around like a 4.7 to a 5, which gives it a nice, just enough acidity to keep the preservative there, but also be able to balance it to a point where it's like, oh, this isn't giving me heartburn. This isn't affecting my stomach. This isn't breaking down the enamel of my teeth when I'm consuming it on, you know, a daily basis or whatever, you know? So, you know, it's a health factor there.
Absolutely. Now, people are asking, obviously, you can go to amourblueforever.com. I will put that URL in the chat module in Zoom, so everybody has it. And you can use the promo code New York Wine Events. New York Wine Events, all spelled out. Everything's spelled out. New York spelled out. Wine Events, plural, for a discount for each order. But where else can people get this wonderful blue wine, Coviello?
Yes, so we're specifically right now in New York. We're in 10 different locations in New York. We're in Inwood at Cabrini Fine Wine and Spirits. We're there. In Brooklyn, we're at a shop named Happy Cork. That's on Buffalo Avenue in Atlantic. And then Notion Fine Wine and Spirits, that's also in Brooklyn. We're looking at different spots currently right now in Manhattan. We have a lot of restaurants and things of that nature that we're in Manhattan, but we're looking for different, you know, shops in Manhattan. So, but specifically, we've been mostly focused, just very concentrated in the direct-to-consumer, and also figuring out where our market is mostly drawn to, which realistically, we don't have a demographic that we go for, because everybody wants to try something new, right? When it comes down to marketing this, it's like people just want to try something new.
And can you ship to most states if they order from your website?
Yes. Because what we do is we work with a few different fulfillment centers that can cover other states that others cannot. So we pretty much just develop a whole external base of, okay, if they can't cover this, we can cover it on this side. If this retailer can cover this amount of people, we can cover on that side, which is, again, that's where most brands are supposed to get to. It's not about covering shops and restaurants. It's about covering coverage of where people want your product at.
Yep. And can you ship to Westchester and Rockland counties? I assume yes.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. New York is number one. We want to make sure we cover all New York.
So Meryl is up in that neck of the woods, and she just said she think that it would be a hit in Westchester and Rockland. So.
You know what? Look, the funny thing about it is, so Zaggy's up there. We spoke to Michael Thomas and Ian, right? Sure. And
I know Ian. Ian and I go back like years.
Ian, oh my goodness, Ian was so difficult with it. He was like, oh my goodness. He's like, I don't know yet. He's like, we're gonna stay. He's like, let's wait till the middle of the year and we'll see. And he was just such a stickler. And I'm like, Michael wants it. Everybody up here wants it. We have it at the Grape Exchange. Yeah, Scarsdale, exactly.
Oh, Grape Exchange. Great.
Yes.
That's a good store.
Yeah, it's a great store. Love the Grape Exchange. Love Mike. Mike's a great guy. His whole team is amazing. So yeah, the Grape Exchange. And then, you know, we're pushing for Zaggy's though. I'm real close to that area, so I would love to get it in there.
That's great. So you got a question here. Are you going to build wines of other different colors?
Yeah. So, you know, I really don't want to do that because, first of all, the color spectrum is mostly covered in the wine industry, right? You have your yellows, you have your whites, you have your reds, you have
your oranges,
you have blues, you have your orange wines. Yeah. So. And realistically, for me, I just wanted to do this as a passion project for my father. So the color blue wasn't something that I wanted to do as a novelty piece, right? So people tell me this all the time. Wow, since you know, you constructed this one color. Do you want to develop other colors? In my mind, I'm like, well, realistically, it's already been difficult getting past people to consume blue, right? Because again, when people see blue, they think mold, or they think Kool-Aid, or they think, you know, something sweet. So it's very difficult to transition people's minds to these presuppositions that they have of a color, right?
Yep.
So if I give you something like a green wine, you're gonna probably think of like lime or like something of that nature. But you know, what type of flavor profile would follow a green wine, you know? So it's like, I want to keep the nuance of winemaking and just the story that I had for this wine specifically, and just build on other great brands out there, because there's so much work that we need to do out in the wine industry that, you know, I can do wine for the rest of my life and enjoy it and not have to make any other innovative product but you know, it's always on the table. But
so Coviello, one last question before we wrap, from Michael.
Sure.
In Jersey. He wants to know, would he be correct in assuming that, sort of in terms of the flavor profile, to think of this, that it's going to have some of the flavor characteristics of white wine versus red wine?
That is correct. That is correct. So it's going to be very similar again to a Vermentino, a Pinot Gris, a Pinot Grigio. It's not going to be oaky like a Chardonnay. It's not going to have a medium or full body. It's going to be very clean, very refreshing, very smooth on the palate. It's going to be very balanced in the grapefruit, white peach, and subtle minerality that you're going to get balanced out to the actual Riesling finish on the back end. Yep. So the finish is going to drop off in maybe like 3 seconds, and then it allows the pairing to, you know, accentuate the actual food that you're tasting, whether it be paella or seafoods or chicken francais or chicken porchata or things of that nature, like fish or things of that nature. So it's meant for pairing, because in Spain, when they drink their wines, it always comes down to the table and pairing, and that's usually how Italians look at it. That's how, you know, all these other international wine producers look at it, because it's all about pairing, right? It's all about sitting at a table, enjoying a dinner, and, you know, enjoying your wine with it. Absolutely,
absolutely. Well, Coviello, I want to thank you. This has been so much fun. We love working with you at our events. And listen, I learned so much in the last 35 minutes, you know, that I didn't know, even though we've known each other for the last couple of years. So
right. Yes,
it's so cool to hear about the process. And I think it's a wonderful, you know, the passion project and the tribute to your dad. Yes. But at the same time, I also think it's really cool to have a product like this that brings some fun and some great sort of, you know, more knowledge and information about wine and the actual production process. The fact that this is a completely natural process to make this incredible color is really cool.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for being a part of this. We'll get you back again soon, and we'll do a different type of wine.
Absolutely.
And what you're doing is really cool and impressive. Thank you again.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, New York Wine Events, for always having me and being super supportive. Thank you for everybody that has joined and listened. I so appreciate every single one of you. Stay blessed, stay thankful, and we're making out of this stronger than ever. And, you know, build the brands and build love and stay optimistic, everybody.
You got it. That's a great way to end. Thanks, Coviello. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Be well.
See you later, guys.
Okay. Take care.